Hi, students. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sing or Cimnanya, and thank you all so much for all the love and support. Hope you all are doing great. So, I came across this video where this professor was talking about the truth about Tulsa race riot, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Rosewood, right? The memories of the massacre. And I remember during the period that I was making research about Tulsa, Rosewood, and all that, I found out that it was they wrote it's that they said it was a riot. Then looking deeper, I found out that it was a massacre, right? And then each time I talk about all this, and I am asking what happened to the people, I mean the community, because I remember somebody in the comment section telling me something. I can't remember what I was talking about. Reparations. He was like, "Why have they not returned all the landed property that they took away from Black people?" Because Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Rosewood and Lake Lanier, all these places were Black-owned community and all that. They did what they did, took away the land and never gave anything back to them. Lives were lost, properties were lost, businesses were lost. And the remaining, I think, 5 people, if I am not mistaken, 5 or 4 people that survived the massacre actually took the case to court. Because they were asking for reparations to be compensation to be paid to them. And as said early this year, that was actually denied to them. And then you all are always very quick to ask us, if the people that experienced slavery are still alive, we are going to pay them. But the ones that experienced the massacre are still alive, you all are not going to pay. Let's get into this video.
Hey everybody, Professor Moore here, and today I want to talk about 2 racist massacres that occurred in the United States in the 1920s that had been forgotten and buried for a long time and have only recently come back into the light where they belong. In 1982, a journalist for the St. Petersburg Times named Gary Moore started writing a series of articles on the Rosewood Massacre of 1923, and what he described was basically hell on earth. In 1923, after a white woman named Fannie Taylor falsely accused a Black man of assaulting her, the white residents of a Florida town rose up and went on a rampage, and they destroyed a prosperous Black town named Rosewood and killed any Black person they could find. Newspaper headlines at the time described how whites gather for miles to slay Negroes, Negro lynched on mother's grave. Posses search woods for Negro after race riot. Rest of Negro houses in Rosewood burned. Mob of 150 white men applies torch as final act of race war in Florida. At the end of this violence, up to 200 Black Americans had been killed, with many being tossed in mass graves. Remarkably, this racist attack had almost been lost to history, but once Gary Moore started publishing these articles in 1982, the survivors of the massacre finally began breaking their silence and telling their stories. In a major victory, the reopening of this wound led the state of Florida to issue reparations to the survivors of the massacre. The families who were impacted by this violence were awarded $2 million, and an educational fund was set up for their descendants. In 1997, the director John Singleton tried to ensure that Americans would never forget this racist crime when he made the film Rosewood, which I think should be mandatory viewing for all Americans. Even though nothing can bring back the lives that were lost, these actions were a step in the right direction. And if we look at the Tulsa Massacre of 1921, we can see a similar story. To start with, just like Rosewood, until very recently, many Americans knew nothing about the Tulsa Massacre of 1921. In fact, it wasn't until 2019 when the Tulsa Massacre finally entered the mainstream American conversation, and the spark for this conversation came from an unlikely place, the HBO adaptation of the graphic novel Watchmen. When Watchmen premiered in 2019, the first episode opens with a recreation of the Tulsa Massacre, and for many people, this was the first time they had ever heard of this event because for decades, this story had been hidden and erased. Civil rights attorney Demario Solomon Simmons grew up in Greenwood, Oklahoma, right where this massacre took place, and never heard about it until he took a college history course. He was shocked to see how deep this story had been buried. Over the past few years, this story has come back into the light. Here are the facts. The spark that ignited the Tulsa massacre is very similar to the story of Rosewood. In 1921, a black 19-year-old named Dick Rowland tripped and bumped into a 21-year-old white woman named Sarah Page in an elevator, and she screamed. Her coworkers spread the story that she had been attacked and assaulted, and even though she denied these charges, it didn't matter. Simply an accusation against a black person was as good as a guilty verdict and a death sentence. The police arrested Rowland and took him to jail while a lynch mob formed to kill him before he ever saw the inside of a courtroom. When Rowland's parents and other members of the black community went to the jail to protest, the white people of Tulsa rose up to put them back in their place and show them that even if they were no longer enslaved, they would never truly be Americans. They could never fully be safe in America. Just as with Rosewood, Greenwood and Tulsa was a prosperous black community that was even called Black Wall Street, and it was this black wealth and happiness that the white people in Tulsa were attacking. The violence directed against the black community in Tulsa is hard to imagine. White mobs turned Greenwood into a burned-out war zone, and there was nowhere that these people could look for help. The police were part of the lynch mob. The governor of Oklahoma couldn't be bothered to lift a finger. Not only did white mobs murder black people in the streets with guns and machetes, but they even used privately owned airplanes to fly over Greenwood and drop bombs on the people below. Here we can see photographs of the bombed out city that looks like something that came from World War II. This is what white supremacist terrorism looks like. This is what the black people of Tulsa were subjected to simply because they were black. It's hard to imagine that this took place in the United States a little over 100 years ago. These are the pictures and the stories that were hidden and buried for so long. This is the racist violence that this country has never fully acknowledged. At the end of the Tulsa massacre, up to 300 black Americans had been killed, with many being tossed into mass graves. In fact, as recently as this year, these mass graves are still being discovered. This is still an active crime scene. The survivors of this massacre have long sought reparations, but time is running out. In the past few years, the last survivors of this racist violence have been dying without ever seeing true justice. These stories are not history. This is an ongoing crime. The Rosewood massacre took place 101 years ago. The Tulsa massacre took place 103 years ago. In historical terms, this is practically yesterday. And until this country finally faces up to the racist violence that defined this country for so long, we will never be able to heal. And these wounds will remain scars in the soul of the country.
So this is all I got from this video, and sincerely speaking, I really don't know how I discovered his channel, but I love what he is doing. Why? Because it's time we start holding them accountable for most of the things that happen to my people. And also I love the fact that he is out there talking to his people, because all this while we've been saying it is like they really do not value whatever we say. But when it comes from them, I am sure they will understand it better, or probably fight him, or whatever they choose to, but that is on them. I remember that I have talked about Tulsa massacre, Rosewood, and all that when I started my channel. It was at that point I was getting to understand Black history very well, and that was, I think I broke down talking about all this. It was really very hard for me, and I really do not understand why people will be this hard. I don't want to use the word that I wanted to, but like I don't know how or why people would be this way. Now I remember while I was talking about when I was reading about it, I think this happened in that was 31st of May 1921, and I think the massacre lasted for 2 years. While I was reading about it, I saw people saying that they were like how You search for something and they tell you this is what happened and it was a massacre, and some were saying that it was a riot. As I kept reading, I found out that it was no riot, that it was them trying to use the riot to cover it. And now let's talk about how Tulsa, Rosewood, these were Black communities. I mean, it's called prosperous Black community. When I say prosperous, there is nothing you are not going to find in that community, because Black people, you will see doctors, nurses, lawyer. There is nothing they do not have. They also have their banks and all that. I saw the pictures, I saw the videos of the street and all that, and you will see how decent, how organized, and how great it was, right? And they felt like, how can people that went through slavery and all that came out all over again and started, like, dominating or trying to take over some places and all that? How can you people do something like that? Like, who asked you to be that prosperous? So, for that reason, we might not be able to handle it, right? And the same people that said it is mass riot, like, how come that they were dropping something if it is a riot, right? They were dropping something and there was, this is to tell you some things are well planned and well executed, right? And with everything that happened, Black people will still move to another place and then they will be like, wait, how are they doing? How are they doing all this? Right? Like, we just finished at, let's say, Tulsa, and they moved to Rosewood. Like, are you people okay? No way. We will find out how and why you people are prospering. And then the next thing, something else will happen. So all these were the things Black people went through. And to this very moment, it is hard for them to acknowledge that they did something to Black people. And each time we talk about reparations, they tell you, I mean, slavery is over. Now let me bust your bubble. You all remember that some people that were alive during the massacre, right? The survivors. I eventually took this to court because, like, they were looking for justice and all that. And they were also asking for reparations to be paid for them because they are still very much alive. You all remember, okay, now I am going to digress a bit, but it's still within this thing. You all remember that each time Black people talk about reparations, they are always like, if the people that experienced it were alive, we definitely would have paid them their money. But how do you expect me to pay somebody that did not experience experience slavery and all that? How do you want us to pay you? But now they saw the people that experienced everything that happened firsthand, their houses and everything were damaged and all that. They ran away from it. And I don't know how the judiciary system, how they went up and down and decided that this case will never be brought to court again. And the case was dismissed I don't know if it's early this year. I definitely will look for it. I can't remember. I am not, but I think early this year, the case was dismissed. I am sure early this year. Case dismissed. Now, we will talk about the harm that has been done to Black people all this while. Some people think it's a child's play, a joke, and all that. But I love the fact that some people are coming out, themselves, like, nobody's forcing them, nobody's asking them to speak up, for they are the ones coming out to speak about the things that happen to Black people, Black communities, and how a prosperous and great community all of a sudden. And now I am going to ask, how come all those communities that were taken away from Black people, they ended up building something else? And what happened to the lands? Are they also not going to give them back their lands? Because I mean, like, really, this is actually atrocity, land I mean, Black owned lands, like, buildings, everything all raised out. And also, I also was able to find out during that period, some people, I mean, lost money, right? Because, I mean, literally, they burned literally almost everything. The ones that escaped, escaped. And also people that had money in the banks and all that were not also able to take away their money. Why? Because most of their belongings and their identity cards were also burned there. And they couldn't, and to this very moment, some banks still owe Black people, both from slavery and both slavery and some of the communities that were burned down. And I keep asking, why do we have to keep reminding you all that reparation is something that needed to be paid? Now, we'll talk about people that, okay, Holocaust did not happen in US soil, in American soil, but they were paid reparations. But the people that experienced racism, experienced some slavery and all that firsthand, did not get any reparations. And you are telling me that we are loved. No, we are not loved, and we understand that. It's something that we've known for a longer time. But I feel like a lot of people, I don't know, but that reparation is something that there is need for them to pay. I mean, that check is something that really got to cut. So that for those that want to stay back, they can stay back. For those that want to find their way out, they can find their way out and look for somewhere else to go. But then I am going to keep asking this. Why is it hard why is it hard for them to pay reparations? And each time I talk about reparations, some people think it is just only for slavery. No, you all remember Lake Lanier, right? Really, there are some, I just don't want to go into this because I don't want to start feeling bad or start getting emotional and all that. But man, Black history is just a history on another level. I am not going to lie. After years of so many things. See, I don't know, I am probably going to digress, but yeah. There is a black boy. There is a black boy. Okay, I think he is Sudanese, right? Where is he from? I don't know who. I think he was adopted by white people. So he is absolutely American as he stands. But if you look at him, you definitely will know that he is Sudanese, right? If you get to see that young man anywhere on TikTok, block him. Block him. These are the people. I don't know. Some problem with some people, migrants, is that when they adopt them or they move, they forgot that some people were some people fought tooth and nail to make sure that they were able to migrate and have a better life. And I keep telling people, if you all think that you cannot respect the real people that own this place, I mean the Black people that fought tooth and nail, that fought so hard for you people to be enjoying what you all are enjoying right now. If you all think you cannot respect them, then you all are the problem, not them. I hope you all understand that. I am saying it. Feel free to come and attack me on my email or in the comment section. That is none of my problem, but sometimes truth is bitter. Why did you all now migrate during slavery? Why did you all now migrate some years after slavery? Why did they not migrate? You all waited for the cause to be cleared, right? And then you all came over, and all you all can do is to probably insult and denigrate them for no reason. You all are not even serious. Because if you are serious, you definitely will know that, something was handed over to you in a platter of gold. And if you all are also not going to, if you also live in US or in America, and you also are not going to raise your voices to make sure reparations are being paid, you also are the problem. Some people do not even care. Some of them that live there do not even know the history of the people that are accommodating them. They don't know anything. But all they do is come online to pew some rich disease rhetoric, because they were adopted by this. But one day, I think if I see some of his pictures again, I am probably going to bring it so you all will see his watermelon mouth and lips. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.